And as always, we're going to be looking for accurate context, good risk management, and always exercising good patience.
Everybody who's traded has gone through periods of time where their strategy hasn't worked.
Where if not a hard stop, you should reevaluate the trades you're in based on time.
That's what we're here for, is to put ourselves in the best success. A trading routine does that, builds that habit, lets you know what to work on, what to reflect on, and what to improve on the next day.
If you want consistency from the markets, you've got to what, Hogue?
You've got to bring consistency to the markets.
And we're going to bring it today on the Playbook. That is our topic. Mick, I assume you have some sort of trader shout out for us before we get started?
I do. I've got a big number to share too. Shout out to Kevin R. And his funded account up about $8,300 today. That is not a small day.
It is impressive.
That's not our Kevin R. from support, right?
No, not Mr. Rogers.
Okay. So, yeah, I didn't remind you at the top. It is Tuesday, January 24th. You already knew that probably. Today, we wanted to talk about something we could talk about a lot of the time, but one of the best pieces of trading advices, or Hogue witticisms, the Mark Twain of trading himself, is this quote that I love about, if you want consistency from the market, you got to bring consistency to the market. And I think that a lot of people understand that the objective, the goal of their trading is to be consistent. I think that where the trouble builds is figuring out how to bring the consistency that is required to do that. So, Hogue, since this is something I heard you say for the first time, I was thinking today you could kick us off with a little bit of your thoughts on that.
Of course. I've worked with a lot of traders here at Topstep, and maybe even a little even before that. And one of the things I hear the most is, how can I become a consistent and profitable trader? I do well for a while and then things go south, and then I do well for a while. There's this boom and bust thing that goes on with a lot of traders. And the first thing I ask them is, okay, if you're seeking consistency from the market, how are you seeking consistency from the market? What are you doing to prepare yourself consistently with information about the markets, self-information? There's lots of facets to being prepared and bringing your ideas consistently to the market. Now, the markets are always changing, of course, right? We all have the charts and the tools that we think give us the best opportunity to profit from the marketplace. But if we've already got what we think is going to be showing us the way, sometimes we're just going to let our guard down. We're not going to do the homework. We're not going to be consistent in, number one, our preparation for the trading day, and number two, our review of the trading day at the end of the session. It's prep, trade, and what is it? Reflect. You've got to be doing all three of them. When you start to get to maybe a level of consistency, a lot of folks are going to start thinking, I've got this now. I don't have to do the work anymore. And it's the worst thing that you can do because you're not prepared. You're sitting down, you haven't done your homework, you're looking at the markets, you think you know what's going to happen, or you think you might know what's going to happen, but you may have missed a couple of things through your preparation that could have explained things a little bit differently for you. So set up a system, a worksheet, if you will. Do that every day. It doesn't have to stay that way. It can change over time. You may find things that you're going to want to add or you're going to want to take away, but get used to doing that homework before sitting down or before opening up the platform or before grabbing your mouse and starting to click and starting to take trades. And at the end of the day, what did you do well? What did you do wrong? What did it feel like? What kind of internal messages can you take after today? And you may even start to see some sort of patterns in those internal feelings and things that over time that can help you with your consistency. So It all starts with the homework. It all starts with establishing a couple of different hypotheses, recognizing when those hypotheses ring true, having a strategy to trade to those hypotheses, trading the day, and then reviewing everything you do at the end of the day. Not just did it make money, did it lose money, did this work, did this not work? What happened inside? Be thinking about in your reflection, not just market information, internal information. How did it feel when I took this loss?
Mm-hmm.
Why did it feel this way? How did it feel when I took this win? And why did it feel this way? I took this win and then the market kept going. How did that feel? And why do you feel that way about all these things? So consistency in the market is all about the work you do outside the market, and then you address the market. You're in its environment. It's not in your environment. Remember that.
I came up with an analogy that was going one way, and now I've come to believe the opposite. What I was going to say, you guys might appreciate this. I was going to say, don't treat the markets like a buffet. And I'm talking about a big buffet. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, do treat the markets like a buffet, but do it strategically, right? Don't get distracted by a bunch of crap that's out there. When you go there, I think too many people go into it with what I would call like bad buffet strategy. They're just kind of looking at the markets and thinking, oh, maybe this is okay. Maybe that's good. I'm going to get involved with this and just trying a little bit of everything. But instead, like when I go to a good buffet, which is rarely, I don't go to many, but I have a plan in advance, right? About each course. I look through it before I start and say, oh, that's the good stuff. That's the crap. And just maximize my enjoyment by focusing in on the good stuff and doing that consistently, right? They're going to put a lot of distractions out there, a lot of
Fillers,
spreads, fillers, stuff that you don't want, you don't need. So just focus on the A buffet items, right? So it both is and isn't there. But I like the idea, how this goes back into consistency, is know what you're doing before you step up there, right? You need to have a plan no matter what you're doing and recognize when you are following it and when you are not. And that's the only way that you're going to get the results.
well, as a big fan of buffets,
yeah,
I like this analogy because you've got to scan the whole buffet first and say, okay, that's on my that I like, and don't worry about the rest of the stuff.
We approach buffets extremely different here, gentlemen.
Where
Well,
are you guys
I
even
look at a buffet
finding
and
buffets? I couldn't even tell you where a buffet was.
like an
I
I look
Easter
at a
tell you
buffet.
buffet and I
about a
say,
buffet.
okay.
I my cost per pound of food is very low. I am eating it all, everything, not just one little thing. I'm hitting it all. The mac and cheeses, the potatoes, the meats, well, you name it, it's all going on my plates. And
But to
that's
see
the
what you're
finesse.
doing there, to bring it back to markets, is I'd say you're still acting strategically there because you're picking out the things that you know will be done well in this market, in this
Oh, I'm
environment.
trying it all. The cinnamon rolls, you name it. I'm saving room for the soft serve at the end. I remember going to Old Country Buffet back in the day, and they had the
Oh.
soft serve machine.
You're too young for that.
Because they do that well. I went
Nah.
on one field trip, but Dan, if you went to an Old Country Buffet and they had like, I don't know, king crab or something for some reason, I'd
They
be a
limit
little
that.
bit. Well,
They
I'd
stand there
be
and
like,
limit you
wait
filling
a
your plates
second.
with that one.
This
it
is a
depends
trick.
on where you're at. Can we change the consistency topic of this and do a buffet topic for Coach's Playbook?
A whole
This is like
series.
20 minutes before the lunch hour too. Like my mouth's watering, not so much about the buffet, but thinking about what I might be doing, and my stomach's growling. Like I like this food topic today.
All right, we'll make you lose your lunch, Mick. Talk about consistency. What are you seeing? Maybe in regards to our traders too, because you spend the most time, you and Dan both, seeing what our traders are doing in the combine or the funded level. And if you have any thoughts there about consistency and what's kind of working and what's not.
So from what I see in the funded accounts, I do see some inconsistencies with traders. I think for me in my position, like I recognize things that could be done differently more so than things that are going smoothly. If everything's going smoothly, it might not catch my attention, like seeing something that I think there could be an alteration or an adjustment to. Probably one of the biggest inconsistencies that I see in traders and the live accounts is these traders being willing to risk more in a single trading day than they are normally taking down on an average winning day, which is something that I'll have a lot of conversations with traders about this. If I'm only on my average winning days, I'm only making, $500 in a day, but then I have these, $2,100, $2,200 losing days, something's wrong there. It should be the other way around. When I think about our topic, and so that's just to address your question, Jack,
Sure.
that's something that I see and I try and work with traders on, because there's an inconsistency with what they're risking and what they're looking for in a reward on any given day. When I think about markets in general and bringing a consistent approach, I think in order to find out what you're doing well, and in order to find out what you're doing wrong, you have to have a consistent approach to the markets to be able to recognize those things. If on Monday and Tuesday I'm trading a certain strategy and I'm doing something different than I'm doing on Wednesday and Thursday, well, if I look at my entire week's performance, like I'm going to have a much more difficult time figuring out like what I should have been doing, what I did well, what I was doing wrong, where I can make adjustments. But if I have a consistent approach and implement a consistent strategy, I can pinpoint certain environments where that's not working, where it is working. I can pinpoint, okay, I may need to tweak I have my core strategy. I need to tweak it a little bit here because current market environment, whether we're up, down, or sideways, it wasn't working that well. And I think it wasn't working because I recognize this, because I have a consistent approach. If I'm just coming in every day and throwing spaghetti at the wall and doing different things, it's going to be extremely challenging, if not impossible, for me to figure out what I'm doing wrong. I might be able to, say at the end of the day, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have done that. But then, that anything that we are learning that we did well or did poorly that needs improvement, if I'm only doing that at the end of the day, I'm not going to remember that 2 months down the road. Maybe I will. Chances are I won't. So if I have a consistent approach, then I can, it's easier to remember those things psychologically, I think.
Right. It's small changes and you're not running a good scientific experiment. I think this is something we see a lot too as a shortcoming, is if you're changing too many things all over the place, sort of the opposite of consistency, you're not going to be able to isolate what was working and what wasn't, because this should be about data measurement and collecting a large enough sample size that you have confidence that your strategy works or something needs to be changed. One of the only things you can change that's completely allowed, and change it as much as your account dictates, is the size that you trade, because that really shouldn't affect. You can change your size, usually smaller, especially if you've been losing money, and it shouldn't really affect your statistics as far as risk reward or your average risk reward or your win rate, stuff like that. Because as a point click trader, you're likely not trading enough size. I will go as far as say you're definitely not trading enough size to be incurring large amounts of slippage beyond that. So I think it's important to focus on change one thing at a time. Unless things are just like completely not working, don't shoot yourself in the foot. But then you might need to start from scratch. But just change things slowly, tweak things slowly, and just monitor what the results are.
Yeah, I think that's really good, Jack. I'm glad you mentioned that, one thing at a time. Do it slowly. I will go back for the newer traders out there. You do have to start somewhere. So trying a bunch of different things, early on, there's nothing wrong with that. How else are you going to learn what kind of works for you and what doesn't? But as time goes on and you mature and grow with your strategies or as a trader, the consistent approach and small, slow tweaks is where you want to be. But I totally recognize you can't start there without a foundation or a baseline.
A lot of that is just being accountable to each thing that you do. You have to be able to review and be accountable for each of it. And That's sometimes hard to do, especially for an active trader, is to remain accountable to everything.
Right. You need to segment those trades, right? Because you can't be trading 80% of your trades are scalps, and on 20% you have a totally different strategy where you let them run all day and then look at the aggregate and be like, whoa, look at this risk reward and win rate. Keep your tragedies. Wow, that's a Freudian slip for strategies. Keep your strategies separate for your data so that you can monitor the individual strategies that are working. Dan, you look like you were nodding there.
Well, yeah, I mean, in reality, when we talk about consistency, it starts from the moment you wake up, how you approach your day, how you get into the day, the way you're looking at the market, what charts you're looking at, how you're executing off that, what you're looking at on these charts, right? And Mick brings up a good point. New traders, try new things, dabble, see what you look at, what you like about it, feel things out, because that's the only way you're going to develop. But once you start kind of getting a little bit of a rhythm, you need to be consistent in everything that you do. And the reason being is the only way you're going to be able to improve is if you've been consistent on your approach up to that point. If you've been inconsistent on your approach, you're never going to be able to improve, because you're not going to be able to figure out where you had your problems. So we can sit here and I can say, well, I was trading last week, I did it this way. This week, I'm doing it this way. Well, when you're jumping around that quickly, we may have been in a downtrend one week and then we moved to an uptrend. And because last week in that downtrend, it wasn't working, you changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's really going to be hard to look back at your past performance, overlay it to what the market was doing. I think that's one of the first things is people start to struggle and they quickly change and they don't look at the big outlying factors. Hey, maybe it's earnings month, right? We got a bunch of earnings coming in. You've got Netflix and Amazon and Microsoft all coming in with their earnings, and you struggled with the volatility. Or the Fed came in and instead of raising rates by, half a basis point, 50 basis points, they lower it, right? Like wild things can happen. And because of that one little change, you've now changed your whole strategy without actually looking at what were the factors that caused these changes. So even if you're losing money, you're going to learn a lot from your trading if you approach it consistently.
And in the pursuit of consistency, don't do things that may appear consistent, but are not. I'll give an example of this. For instance, this is consistent, but I wouldn't call it the consistency we're looking for. I sit down at 7:30 and every day I put on a trade by 7:35, or I make 5 trades a day. At least I got to get my 5 trades in a day. That's consistent, but that's not what we're talking about. That's consistent to a process that's based on nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's consistent to the plan and the execution on the plan that you've created. If you don't have why you get in the market and why you're getting out of market written down in some sort of plan, you're never going to be able to be consistent. And it's easy to take that trade at 7:35 every morning because you don't have a reason to execute and you're going to be inconsistent. Consistency is based off of literally there's justification for everything that you're doing. Even if you're wrong, and that's, I think, the big thing here, even if you're wrong and you're losing money, you've been consistent in how you're getting in the market, why you're getting out of the market. And I think one of the things that I've learned about myself as well, when it becomes consistent and I'm struggling and I'm taking loss after loss, I start to look at it and go, hey, you know what? The VIX has increased, volatility's increased. I've been trading the same. All I have to do is open up my risk by a couple points. And every one of those trades 50% of those trades would have been profitable. And it's little things like that. You'll start to find like, no, your strategy and your plan is actually very good. Market stage changed a little bit and you got to make those small little adjustments.
It's that accountability,
Exactly. Those are the things that I think people like, you want to jump quickly because you're panicking and you feel rushed. Be patient.
And because those market states change, things like that you might want to be tracking, like the number of trades you put on a day, they should follow something like a bell curve, right? Like if you were to say how many trades you take a day, let's say the average was 5 or something, you should have a pretty good distribution between like 1 to 0 trades and 10 trades. If you find that you just always have a position on and you're day trading, have to be flat, or you seem to take the same amount of time trades a day, or if you're looking at the times you initiate, if you're like always initiating a trade some crazy percent of the time at the same time in the morning, those are all signs that maybe you're over trading. Maybe just feel you're getting restless, you're getting anxious, and just feeling you got to put a trade on. That's not consistency. So just something to think about there. Any other thoughts on the topic of consistency? Or is that,
Not about consistency, but I'm going to start calling you Jack the Bell Curve Pelzer.
yeah. Well, because
Jack talks about bell curves often.
I do. And the reason for that is that a lot of things that we do in life, partially because we're talking about trading data, right? And there are different distributions and things like that. But in things like trading data or I think sports statistics and stuff like that, you tend to see with enough samples, bell curves appear. There's going to be some average amount that most people are in, and then there's going to tail off. Like if you look at batting averages or something, if you put it into segments of like how many people in Major League Baseball are batting, 150 to 200, 2 to 250, you're going to see a big spike in the middle around in that like 250 bucket, 250 to 275. And you're going to see very few people, now pitchers don't bat in the NL, very few people consistently below the 200, the Mendoza line, because you're going to get sent to AAA or worse. And you see you're going to the Birmingham Brewers or whatever, Iowa Cubs, and you're going to see very few people on the 350 side. And that's going to happen anytime that you're doing something like, I would say the number of trades a day is a good example. If it's not, then statistically that usually means there's an external force being on it. So if you see like that you have a strategy and it's way skewed to one side where you always make 5 trades a day and then it like tapers off very quickly, like up to 8 or something like that, there's an external force there. And in trading, that external force is you just putting on trades. You do not clearly feel comfortable not putting on trades or putting on very few trades. So that's why I do it. Love bell curves. Could talk about it all day. If you guys are all out one day, I'll just do a whole episode on probability distributions. So there's that. Hogue, you have something less boring?
Well, I was just going to say, trading and why so many people are attracted to it is fun, right? What we're talking about doing is boring.
Mm-hmm.
But don't let that suck the fun out of trading for you, because we all can tell you that while a lot of trading is boring, there's a lot of work to do. Making money is fun.
Sure is.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to this, when it comes to consistency, it's not your P&L. Don't rely on your P&L for consistency. Market states change. The market's going to dictate what that number really is. So don't come in and because you're not making, $1,000 a day consistently that you're struggling as a trader. That's not the case. Don't ever, hang your hat on that one. Find consistency in your approach, find consistency in your process, and the profits will follow.
Yeah, your P&L should not be consistent. It should be trending towards or sort of like averaging some consistency, positive number, but something else to think about. Mick?
Right. And as we talk about market states, in line with what Dan brought up about the P&L, one thing to think about is what's the average true range or the ATR of your market? I've have it with the background in the grains, there were long periods of time where, corn, which, moved a little bit slower than the beans and the wheat, in many circumstances, tight ranges, there's less opportunity to knock down big profits unless you're scaling your position sizing in those narrow ranges. We say volatility brings opportunity. If there's a less volatile market and there's not bigger swings, your P&Ls might be a little bit lower than they would be in a different market state.
All right. Well, really quick, Holden says that we have a question or two here. So Holden, if you want to slack me that real quick, maybe you can do one or two real quick. In the meantime, I don't know, we want to sing the Jeopardy song or something like that. Okay, here we go. Two questions we have in here is I'll just read the three here and then we'll take them down. Is at what point did you start feeling consistent? When were you becoming profitable? And I have a hard time building typology to classify trades. Hogue, when did you start feeling consistent?
Yesterday. No, it was different in the trading pit than on screen. On screen, finding consistency. I mean, with the experience I had, it took me 2 years to really, I think, try and get my head straight about what I was looking at and what I wasn't going to be able to see anymore. But it doesn't mean that it's going to take you that long. You know, and then kind of quantifying your strategy or quantifying the setups. I try not to do that. Everything I do is based on hypothesis, based on the current market state or current market structure context. So as long as I look at the market through the same lens, I'm coming up with hypotheses that are familiar or consistent with that lens or what the market is telling me. And then I can, you know, put forth a strategy that fits that. So it's not necessarily a setup type of consistency. It's a recognition of market state and market context that creates the hypothesis of what I think might happen or what the market is saying might happen. And then once I see that coming true, then I'll apply the correct strategy. As simple as if I'm seeing a range bound market, I'm going to fade the extremes. In other words, sell high and buy low. If I'm seeing a market that's breaking out of a balance or in a trend, I'm certainly not going to fight that trend. I'm going to try and find a way to get into the trend in the direction of it, which I'm historically bad at. But that's what I would do. So quite simply, there's two different strategies: range bound and breakout / trend. Two different strategies, two different market states, two different ways to trade them.
To piggyback on what John said regarding consistency, and you know, when you do find it, just because you find it doesn't mean you keep it. That's that's something you need to actively work on. You can find consistency, but you're always working towards being consistent. It's not something you find and forever have. It's something you find, get a better understanding of, and then you have to work to maintain it. And it's not easy, especially as we talk about different market states and whatnot. So keep that in mind.
It's an excellent point, Mick. It's not something you're going to be able to get and hold on to forever.
Yeah. Jack, you're on mute.
Jack.
Sorry, the dog was going wild and my family is coming back right now. So I think we could do a whole episode on when we started being profitable, because we have a few minutes here, but I think that'd be an interesting one. I was lucky enough to sort of be mentored and learn in the industry. So it was kind of a real head start on that. But I would say, you know, at about a year, and at that point I was doing, you know, 12 to 14 hour shifts overnight for a year. So it was a lot. Like, it was a year until I felt like I got it, but it was a pretty intense year. We could discuss that more. And I think classifying the typology of trades, I think Hogue went into that a little bit. I think what we're saying for type, if I understand this question right, is that when you is to classify your trades by a single strategy, whatever your strategy may be, whatever it involves, settles or whatever, where you're setting your bracket, classify that as one trade, and that way you can review the statistics on whether it worked or did not. Also, just generally, there's a big difference between people who are trying to scalp in and out trades very quickly and people that are putting on trades for many minutes to several hours a day that are taking more times to work out are two main types probably for the day traders, along with, are you fading a move or are you momentum trading are big ones there. And then lastly, there's a question I have to be very careful about this. I'll just say that with Topstep, I think that we excel at, I think we have a very a very solid payout strategy, or what we call it, payout policy that you can read on the site. I think we have a lot of resources here and great support team, and I'll just leave it at that. But if you're doing the program, read about our payout policy. It's we stand by it. We think it's a good way to do things. So it's noon. I got to run soon.
Going to the
And do you have a
buffet.
quote for us? Yeah, I wish.
I got a quote from John Maxwell. Small disciplines repeated with consistency every day lead to great achievements gained slowly over time.
Get a little better each day, everyone. Hope, take us home.
Again, trading is fun. Inconsistent trading, not so much. Do the things, the homework that you say you're going to do, be accountable to it. I've given people a lot of ideas and things to frame their trading days. And, you know, if I ask them and they are honest with me, most of the time they're probably not doing it. And then they come back and say, why am I struggling? Are you doing the homework? Are you doing the things it takes to speed your learning curve in trading, which is accountability? And always be honest with yourself when it comes to your review of how well you are doing, how hard you are working at being prepared to be a consistent trader. It's not easy. A lot of it's boring. But like I said earlier, making money is fun. Let's get out there and let's do this. Let's profit. Do what it takes.
We'll see you next week, y'all.